This is VIZARD podcast. Now streaming Sherlock Holmes. Scandal in Bohemia. In previous episode, the man in mask was none other than the King of Bohemia, King Wilhelm, who now want to hire Sherlock Holmes to find out his compromised pictures with IRENE. The king took a heavy chamois leather bag from under his cloak and laid it on the table. "There are 300 pounds in gold and 700 in notes," he said. Holmes scribbled a receipt upon a sheet of his notebook and handed it to him. "And Mademoiselle's address?" Holmes asked. "It's Bryony Lodge, Serpentine Avenue, St. John's Wood." Holmes took a note of it. "One other question," said he. "Was the photograph a cabinet?" It was. "Then good night, Your Majesty. I trust that we shall soon have some good news for you. And good night, Watson," he added, as the wheels of the royal brougham rolled down the street. "If you will be good enough to call tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock, I should like to chat this little matter over with you." At 3 o'clock precisely, I was at Baker Street, but Holmes had not yet returned. The landlady informed me that he had left the house shortly after 8 o'clock in the morning. I sat down beside the fire, however, with the intention of awaiting him, however long he might be. I was already deeply interested in his inquiry, for though it was surrounded by none of the grim and strange features which were associated with the two crimes which I have already recorded, still the nature of the case and the exaltation of his client gave it a character of its own. Indeed, apart from the nature of the investigation which my friend had on hand, there was something in his masterly grasp of situation and his keen, incisive reasoning which made it a pleasure to me to study his system of work and to follow the quick, subtle methods by which he disentangled most inextricable mysteries. So accustomed was I to his invariable success that the very possibility of his failing had ceased to enter into my head. It was close upon 4 before the door opened, and a drunken-looking groom, unkempt and side-whiskered, with an inflamed face and disreputable clothes, walked into the room. Accustomed as I was to my friend's amazing powers in the use of disguises, I had to look 3 times before I was certain that it was indeed he. With a nod, he vanished into the bedroom. When he emerged in 5 minutes, tweed-suited and respectable as of old, putting his hands into his pockets, he stretched out his legs in front of the fire and laughed heartily for some minutes. Well, really. well, really, he cried, and then he choked and laughed again until he obliged to lie back and limp and helpless in the chair. I asked, "What is it, Holmes? What is it?" "It's quite too funny. I'm sure you could never guess how I employed my morning, or what I ended by doing." "I can't imagine. I suppose that you have been watching these habits, and perhaps the house of Miss IRENE Adler." "Quite so. Quite so. But the sequel was rather unusual. I will tell you. Sit down. I will tell you. However, I left the house a little after 8 o'clock this morning in the character of a groom out of work. There is a wonderful sympathy and friends snowy among horsey men. Be one of them and you will know all that there is to know. I soon found Bryony Lodge. It is a bigger villa with a garden at the back, but built out of front right up to the road. 2 stories. Chub locked to the door. Large sitting room on the right side, well furnished with long windows almost to the floor, and prosperous English window fastenings which a child could open. Behind there was nothing remarkable, save that the passage window could be reached from the top of coach house. I walked around it and examined it closely from every point of view, but without anything else of interest. I then lounged down the street and found, as expected, that there was a mews in a lane which runs down by one wall of the garden. I lent on nostrils a hand in rubbing down their horses, and received in exchange 2 pence, a glass of half and half, 2 fills a shag tobacco, and as much information as I could desire about Miss Adler, to say nothing of half a dozen other people in neighborhood in whom I was not in the least interested, but whose biographies I was compelled to listen to. "And what of IRENE Adler?" I asked. Oh, she has turned all the men heads down in that part. She is the daintiest thing under a bonnet on this planet. So say the Serpentine Mews to a man. She lives quietly, sings at concerts, drives out at 5 every day, and returns at 7 sharp for dinner. Seldom goes out at other times, except when she sings. Has only 1 male visitor, but a good deal of him. He is dark, handsome, and dashing. Never calls less than once a day, and often twice. He is Mr. Godfrey Norton of the Inner Temple. See the advantages of a cabman as a confidant. They had driven him home a dozen of times from Serpentine Mews, and knew all about him. When I had listened to all they had to tell, I began to walk up and down near Bryony Lodge once more, and to think over my plan of campaign. This Godfrey Norton was evidently an important factor in the matter. He was a lawyer. That sounded ominous. What was the relation between them? And what was the object of his repeated visits? Was she his client, his friend, or his mistress? If the former, she had probably transferred the photograph to his keeping. If the latter, it was less likely. On the issue of this question depended whether I should continue my work at Bryony Lodge or turn my attention to Gentleman's Chamber in the Temple. It was a delicate point, and it widened the field of my inquiry. I fear that I bore you with these details, Doctor, but I have to let you see my little difficulties if you are to understand the situation. I am following you closely, Holmes, I answered. I was still balancing the matter in my mind when a hansom cab drove up to Bryony Lodge, and a gentleman sprang up. He was a remarkably handsome man, dark, aquiline, and mustached, evidently the man of whom I heard. He appeared to be in a great hurry. He shouted to the cabman to wait, and brushed past the maid, who opened the door with the air of a man who was thoroughly at home. He was in the house about half an hour, and I could catch glimpses of him in the windows of the sitting room, pacing up and down, talking excitedly, and waving his arm. Of her I could see nothing. Presently he emerged, looking down even more worried than before. As he stepped up to the cab, he pulled a gold watch from his pocket and looked at it earnestly. "Drive like a devil," he shouted. "First to Grouse and Ankies in Regent Street, and then to Church of St.Monica in Quarry Road. Half a guinea if you do it in 20 minutes. Away they went. I was just wondering whether I should not do well to follow them up the lane. Came a neat little lanyard, the coachman with his coat only half buttoned, and his tie under his ear. All the tags of his harness were sticking out of the buckles. It hadn't pulled up before she shoved out of the hall door into it. But she was a lovely woman with a face that a man might die for. The Church of St.Monica. The Church of St.Monica, John, she cried, and half of sovereign if you reach in 20 minutes. This was quite too good to lose, Watson. I was just balancing whether I should run for it or whether I should perch behind her luncheon when a cab came through in the street. The driver looked twice at such shabby fare, but I jumped in before he could object. "The Church of St. Monica! The Church of St. Monica!" said I. "And half a sovereign if you reach in 20 minutes. And it was 25 minutes to 12. My cabby drove fast. I don't think I ever drove faster, but the others were there before us. The cab and Lanyo, with their steaming horses, were in front of the door. When I arrived, I paid the man and hurried into the church. There was not a soul. Not a soul there save the two whom I followed and a surprised clergyman who seemed to be expostulating with them. They were all three standing in a knot in front of the altar. I longed upon side aisle like an other idler who has dropped in the church. Suddenly, to my surprise, the three at the altar faced round at me, and Godfrey Norton came running as hard as he could towards me. Thank God, he cried. You'll do, come, you'll do it." "What then?" I asked. Come, only 3 minutes or it won't be illegal." I was half dragged up to the altar, and before I knew where I was, I found myself mumbling responses which were whispered in my ear, and watching for things of which I knew nothing, and generally assisting in the secure tying up of Irene Adler, spinster, to Godfrey Norton, bachelor. It was all done in an instant, and there was gentlemen thanking me on the one side and the lady on the other, while the clergyman beamed on me in front. It was the most prosperous position in which I never found myself in life, and it was the thought of it that started me laughing just now. It seemed that there had been some informality about their license, and then the clergyman absolutely refused to marry them without a witness of some sort, and that my lucky appearance saved the bridegroom from having to sally out into the streets in search of a best man. The bride gave me sovereign, and I mean to wear it on my watch chain in memory of the occasion. Oh my God, this is a very unexpected turn of affairs, said I. And what then? What happened? Well, I found my plans very seriously menaced. I looked as if the pair might take an immediate departure, and so necessary very prompt and energetic measures on my part. At the church door, however, they separated, he driving back to the temple and she to her own house. I shall drive out in park at 5 as usual, she said, and she left him. I heard no more. They drove away in different direction, and I went off to my own arrangements. Which are? I asked. Some good beef and a glass of beer. Some cold beef and a glass of beer, he answered, ringing the bell. I have been too busy to think of food, and I am likely to be busier still this evening. By the way, Doctor, I shall want your cooperation. I shall be delighted. You don't mind breaking the law, do you? Not in the least. Nor running a chance of arrest. Not in good case. Oh, the cause is excellent. Then I'm your man. Hi, this was episode 3 of Scandal in Bohemia from Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Next episode will drop coming Sunday. Till then, stay tuned and subscribe to Create Your Use Jordan Park app, and make sure you review. Your reviews are really important to let us know that if you like or dislike this episode of the show. Please mention your reviews on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or on our social channels. @podcast or use the name on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Stay tuned, stay safe.